This is my review of the Panasonic GH4, serious little video powerhouse. I'm not going to call this a full review, but I certainly am going to share all of the thoughts of things that I did like about this camera. The one thing that I didn't like, it's really just one. What an amount of power is packed into this camera for video. Now, photographers, and that's primarily what I am, I make videos like this right here, but I don't necessarily call myself a videographer, but I am seriously considering buying this, as I said, because of those nice video features. Still photographers, this should probably not be your first choice for still photos. It does a great job, it's a blast to use, but at its price point and sensor size, there are some other options out there that are going to probably give you a better value. So let me talk about those video features that I love. And you know, what's kind of funny is that it looks a little like a miniature DSLR, and I think that's one of the reasons why it has appealed to me so much more than something like, say, the Fuji X-T1. The Fuji X-T1 was a lot of fun to use, but this just feels so nice in the hand. The dials are very similar to my 5D Mark III, but so much more performance packed in. Let me talk about a little bit of those video features. Mic jack on the side, pretty common, and a headphone jack. It's really nice for cameras at this level to provide that headphone jack. It'll give you real-time feedback of your audio when you're recording in the field. Another feature that I really love is the autofocusing system and the manual focus assist tools that it gives you. It's got focus peaking. Now, some of the other cameras I've reviewed recently also offer that, but the Panasonic just really seems to nail it. It's broad, it's bright, it's easily visible. It's basically, as you can see in this video, it's little blue, you can change it to green or yellow depending on what you're shooting, indicators that let you know that's what's in focus. And as soon as you turn that manual focus dial on the lens, you can watch that move. And it also gives you that nice little range chart at the bottom from macro to infinity. And it gives you an idea of where you are in the spectrum. It's really nice features. You can tweak those so that that magnification is greater or less. And you can also, as I said, change that focus peaking color. It's really nice for video. You know, we still aren't quite at the point where you want to rely on autofocus for can't reshoot type jobs. A wedding ceremony. You don't want the camera on autofocus to be drifting out of focus and grabbing onto something else or something in the background that's distracting and it's not professional. So you want these features, these manual focus features that are going to support and make it easy for you to make adjustments on the fly using your brain and knowing what you need to do. And things like that autofocus or that manual focus are really, really nice. Amazing quality. Now, this kind of ties in with, I was leaving it to the end, but amazing quality, and it shoots 4K video. Some people might come back and say, well, there's cell phones shooting 4K video, and we've talked about this in the podcast and stuff. Yes, those are on tiny little sensor sizes. This is a decent sensor size. It does it well. It's a good sensor, and the output is impressive. Better than that large sensor that the 5D Mark III output offers. I do love my 5D Mark III, and in the samples that I've shot, 5D Mark III still does better in low light when you get up into those higher ISOs. But in good light, normal conditions, the sharpness and the detail, the colors, the dynamic range, all better from the GH4. A nice EVF in here, electronic viewfinder. It's not quite at the level that the Fuji X-T1 is, which I've said, if you've watched my other videos, I've likened that to kind of like looking into this beautiful home theater system with a giant screen on the wall. But it is vibrant, it is responsive, and it lets you see the information that you need to. My one complaint about this camera that I've only been shooting with it for a couple of days, but really it's my only one complaint, is that the little view or the little eye sensor here is quite sensitive. You can turn that off though. What I mean by that is every time I went up to touch the screen to make any changes, because this is a touch screen on the back, it would switch to the EVF and the screen would go off until I'd pull my finger back away and then it would come on. It makes it kind of hard to touch the values and the settings that you want, but you can turn that off and then you simply switch back and forth through this little function button right here to whichever one you want to use. Battery life, it's actually a larger battery than the 5D Mark III by just a little bit, but I've seen shooting in the field, a full day of shooting. This is the Panasonic battery. This is a 5D Mark III battery. They look quite similar, rated just a little bit higher from the Panasonic, but real world conditions, I found a long day of shooting video, playing with the camera. I always am pretty hard on cameras early on because I have that screen on constantly as I'm looking through the menu, figuring this out, shooting a little bit, and then lots more on the menu. And I've been just really impressed with the battery life of this camera. And of course, that it's all packaged into something that's smaller, lighter, and cheaper than, say, a 5D Mark III. Now, I said for photographers, you do have some other options that might be better out there for you, or are better out there for you as far as value goes for just photography. But for video, right now, it's really hard to beat this camera. Because it is that standard 4/3, micro 4/3 mount, you have a huge range of lenses available to you. And one other thing to be aware of, and you could consider this a con, but I think you just more so need to be aware of it. Because of the way this camera shoots a video and reads off of the sensor, you actually are up at about roughly a 2.5 times crop when you're shooting 4K video in the cinema mode. That is important to know. That means any lenses you have on here suddenly are multiplied by a factor of 2. That's getting pretty significant. So you really want to make sure you're exploring kind of the wider angle, and you want to pick up some really nice primes. Or actually this 12 to 35 f2.8 constant is quite a nice lens as well. I also got my hands on the Lumix 42.5mm prime f1.2. Beautiful, beautiful. I'll show you some samples videos. I rented mine from Lumoid.com, and that's where I would suggest you to. If you're interested in trying out one of these cameras, you are considering buying because you're starting to produce more videos and you can't quite decide between the 70D and the Lumix GH4, take some time. You're about to make a really big investment. Take some time to rent. Consider Lumoid, because one of the nice things that they offer is that rent to own. So any money you put towards renting earns you credits that you can later put towards buying from Lumoid. And so you're not wasting any money for 2 reasons. 1, because you get those credits, and 2, because you are educating yourself on what's going to be best and what's going to work best for your system. I do really like the 70D. It's very easy, it's very straightforward, but the image quality doesn't quite compare. Focus tracking, 70D actually still seems to do a little bit better. And you'll also have that wonderful dual pixel focus on the 70D where when you touch the screen and it gets that focus, it really just hits it and it's there. On the Lumix and all other cameras still I see most of the time, the Sony is an exception to this, most of the time I see this little bit of what I call this womp womp effect as the camera's brain, and this is how this focus systeming works. It sees it gets focused, but it goes just beyond to make sure that there isn't a better focus over there. And then it comes back and says, nope, that's the right one. It's this little bit of a womp womp effect. And I still see that just a little bit in the Lumix, and that's why I really appreciate those manual focus options better than any of the other cameras I've had my hands on recently, because it allows you to nail focus with your brain instead of relying on the cameras, and it does that really, really well. What I was going to say is throw something like this stereo mic on. This is the Shure VP83F, and you have just a wonderful video machine in your hands. Or as Lumoid is renting now, a nice video package. They've got some nice wireless Sennheiser mics that you can throw a connection on here, and you have a really nice setup for run and gun type video with beautiful 4K quality. Now some of you might be saying, oh, I don't even have a 4K monitor or a 4K TV. Downsample, you take that 4K video, that gives you a greater ability to stabilize, so you won't be seeing the edges shaking around as much, and you also just pull it down to 1080 and have even better quality. And of course this does shoot 1080, and it shoots a 1080 at 96 frames per second. That's really nice for doing some slow motion work too. Nothing like catching bullets going through apples, but for your kid jumping around on the trampoline in the backyard, or just kind of fun BMXing, all kinds of things like that. All right, so there are my thoughts on the Panasonic GH4. Really a spectacular camera. I'm seriously considering it for my video work because of the portability, the features that I really miss. I love my 5D Mark III, but when I'm starting to use that interface on the back of the camera, when I need to manually focus, it really feels outdated and it starts to feel kind of clunky. If you are considering this, you should rent from Lumoid. Link for those folks is right down below. If you've got any questions about this camera or others, come over and find me on Facebook. There's a link for that down below as well. And make sure you subscribe. If videos like this are helpful, then an easy way to thank me is by hitting that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching.